What is going on, my friends? Talking Head Nick here to talk about Ratchet and Clank yet again. Colin Moriarty, you know that guy. He used to work for IGN, I believe, head of the PlayStation division. So he has lots of insiders, lots of friends within a bunch of studios, including, but not limited to, Insomniac Games, who he knows are working on the next Ratchet and Clank game, as we've been saying. We all know that. But he said something interesting today. You know, we know it's happening, but the question is, when is it, and what is it going to be? He said something today, actually 3 days ago, but we're all talking about it today. He said that it'll probably be, he feels like it'll be a launch title for the PS5. So I have some input on this. I want to dissect this a little bit, but first, you know, stay tuned for that. But first we're gonna, I'm not gonna play the clip because it's on Patreon. It's on a Sacred Symbols Plus episode of The Waiting Game is the title of the episode. I paid a whole $1, my hard-earned cash. I paid a whole hard-earned $1 to listen to it so I could hear him say it and how he said it exactly. Again, I'm not going to play it because I paid for it. I don't want to redistribute his paid content, but I will read it back to you exactly the way that he said it, or at least as close as I can replicate. So he says, starting off by talking about when Spider-Man 2 might come out. Spider-Man fall of 2021, that seems reasonable. We're going to get a Ratchet and Clank game in between that on PlayStation 5. I feel like that's going to be a launch game, the Ratchet and Clank game that's long been in development at Insomniac. That's exactly what he said, verbatim, word for word. So he's clearly very confident that the game's happening at all. So we all want to know, when is this game coming out? He thinks it's going to be a launch title. When is it going to be announced? Probably at the PlayStation 5 event, which remember to subscribe and hit the bell because we're going to do a live stream whenever they announce the PS5 and do a big old live stream, which we don't even know if it's going to happen at all. But in case it is, I want to be there with all you guys and enjoy the announcement of Ratchet and Clank. It'd be a good thing. Cool, awesome, fun time. So I actually have another video coming out in a couple days where I talk about why the next Ratchet and Clank game might be a pretty big deal, but in the second half of it, I input my final thoughts on when the announcement and release might happen. So instead of re-recording all that, I'm just going to play it back again, and this includes my theory onto what I think happened and why I do think it might be a launch title, which is being supported by Colin's statements here. So let's play that back right now. I don't know when it's going to be announced. Who knows? Okay, listen, I could go back and forth on it all day. There's so many pros and there's so many cons to why it could happen now at the PS5 event and be a launch title, best case scenario. It's been 4 years since the last Ratchet and Clank game. Yeah, well, games take a really long time to make, probably longer than 4 years. Well, the PS4 game only took them 10 months to make. Well, the game might be a banger and it might need longer than 10 months. Well, they do have 2 studios and probably more employees than they've ever had. Yeah, well, they're probably also working on Spider-Man too at the same time. Okay, well, they are first party and they have more resources than they've ever had too. Well, they're probably even working on another game, maybe a VR or a first-person shooter, Resistance, a new IP. Well, the transition to the PS4 to the PS5 is really smooth and they already have a head start with the PS4 game already being on the same architecture. Like, you could just go back and forth, like, forever. Like, well, I mean, that was kind of it, but like, point being, there's like equal pros and cons. It's like, which one weigh more, really? I don't know, there's probably more things you can point out, but that's all that I just bothered to write down. So, this is the way I see it, okay? The PS4 game, it took 10 months to make, which is pretty impressive, but it was a $40 game. But see, from Spider-Man to the release of the PS5 launch, that's 26 months. Plenty of time. But if Ratchet is vital, and it really might be a banger, then it would need at least twice as long to be more than just a really short game. So like 24 months at least, and they probably could use those extra 2 months to polish it, and it would just extra time. It's a bigger game to deal with. But they're also doing Spider-Man, and maybe even more, so then Ratchet would need even longer, which at this point would be after the launch of the PS5 when it would come out. Unless they've been working on it longer than we think they have, which they could have been, then I don't know. You know, who knows? Maybe, like we said in the post-Nexus video, I could see this being a new trilogy of games. I guess that was in the leak, too. Check out the leak video where I talk about those leaks. Just watch my videos. Jeez. But, I think, you know, there's potential that it could be a new trilogy of games. That's another thing to, you know, high hopes about. But I don't know. I really think that is a potential thing. So my question is, maybe it's a new trilogy, and maybe each of the 3 games is going to be a short $40 experience. In that case, then yeah, the first one could be announced at the PS5 event and come out as a launch title, but it'll still be a shorter game. I actually want to put a poll up there. Click on the poll up there. I want to know, I'm not going to put my input because I don't want to influence your opinion, but would you rather have 1 big game or 3 smaller ones? Let me know. I'm curious your thoughts. Answer the poll. But like I said in either, I don't remember if it's the post-Nexus video or the leak video, I was talking about how maybe they were already working on this game. Well, I think it was the leak video. I don't know. But maybe they were working on this game before the 2016 game, before they even announced the PS4 game. And the movie can't, because remember the movie was announced first, and then the game was announced like a lot later. So maybe they weren't planning on doing that originally, because it only took 10 months to make it, right? So maybe they put the actual Ratchet game they were really working on the sidelines, made this PS4 game, now they're coming back to it. And now it's like, well, now you're first party, now we want your game to be a bigger deal, because the PS4 one did really well, so now you can spend more time on this original Ratchet and Clank game that you're working on. And oh, it's going to come out at the end of the PS4 launch life cycle. Well, we already have like a lineup of games. You know, Death Stranding just came out recently-ish. Last of Us 2's coming out. Ghost of Tsushima's coming out. That's like going to be the last big game. We don't really need any more first-party games coming out at that time. Hold on to it. Spend more time on it. Have it come out as a launch title. Maybe that's the case. To be honest, I really like that theory. I think I'm putting money on that theory. I don't know. I don't have any money, so ha, psych. Oh, and you know what? This makes a lot of sense with that theory, actually. Check this out. So if you remember a few months ago, Colin Moriarty, I think I said his last name right, in his podcast had said that Ratchet and Clank is coming on the PS4, like totally. But then he backpedaled on that in a later podcast and said that it's coming on PS5. So if what I just came up with is the case, that fits in with what Colin was saying. It was like, yeah, they were planning on making it on the PS4, but then they got acquired. Because it was in the podcast when Insomniac got acquired that he had said that it's going to be on PS5 now. It was before, I think it was before they got acquired that he said that it was coming on PS4. And then they got bought by Sony, and now he's like, yeah, it's coming on PS5. So that makes a lot of sense, because, you know, he's a big insider. You know, you can pretty much trust whatever he hears. But that makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, maybe they didn't start it until Spider-Man came out, and they're just working on a short, you know, Going Commando reimagining, $40, or maybe it's not even Going Commando, it's just a sequel to 2016. I don't think it's going to be a sequel to 2016. If it's going to be a sequel to 2016, I think it's going to be a post-Nexus game. Again, I talk about that a lot in the post-Nexus video. I know it's a long video, but I highly suggest you watch it. I talk about so much stuff because I really do think that could be the next game. Yeah, so all of that, plus what Colin just said today, or 3 days ago, that it's going to be, he thinks it's going to be a launch title, and it's been long in development, so that supports my theory that this probably was being worked on for a very long time. Maybe it has something to do with those leaks that happened where they said it was being worked on before the 2016 game. I don't know if that's true. Either way, it's probably been worked on for longer than we think, and I do believe it just feels right. It could happen with the PS5. You know, personally, when I found out that Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction was only on the PS3, immediately I decided I was getting a PS3. That was a system seller for me, you know? I don't know how much of a system seller this is going to be, but this is something else. I was just thinking about this last night, actually, that I was looking at the previous launch titles that came out with other PlayStation games, and they've never really been super significant. Like, looking back, the PS1, 2, and 3 were pretty weak. There wasn't really a whole lot, but things were very different back then. On the PS4, that's the closest thing that we can look to kind of judge, you know, how they might do it now. And there was a handful of games to play at launch, but I think only 2 of them came out at launch, and that was Killzone Shadowfall and Knack. So there's a bunch of titles that we all feel like are gonna be like, these are gonna be launch titles, but I think it's more safe to assume that a lot of these titles that we think will be launch titles will be more within 6 months of it coming out. Like Infamous Second Son, for example, that came out, I think it's like 3 months after PS4 came out. So that wasn't technically a launch title, but it still came out like basically the same time. If Ratchet and Clank isn't a launch title, I really feel like it'll be within 6 months, no later than a year after the PS5 launch. Like, no way. I really doubt it. At that point, we're talking about when Spider-Man 2 might be coming out. I also wanted to add in here, I'm not going to show it because it's part of this Patreon. I don't want to show anything that you have to technically pay for, but I will kind of, you know, sum it up for you. Somebody asked in the comments if he knows if it's going to be a Going Commando remake or another reimagining. He says he doesn't know that. He just knows it's happening at all. I then asked him if he knows how long exactly it has been in development, which would maybe confirm my theory. But he hasn't answered me. If he does at all, I'll put it in the description and or the comments. So look down there to check to see if he answers to see how long it has been in development, if he says that. And a quick bonus news story here too, also in this podcast. I didn't listen to the whole thing, I skimmed through it, but he said that Resistance is more likely to come back than Killzone, he thinks. That's just how he feels about it, and I agree. I really do think Resistance could very much come back. Insomniac, you know, they're very capable of working on multiple projects. I don't know if that means they're going to make a Resistance 4, or maybe somebody else is gonna make Resistance 4, or if there's gonna be a collection, that would definitely be somebody else. I don't think they wouldn't do that. Absolutely not. But I think that's in the realm of possibilities for all you Resistance fans out there. I love it. If you haven't played Resistance, you gotta play Resistance. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank launch title, we've been speculating on that, so I mean, it could be the case. Again, subscribe, hit the bell. Whenever PlayStation finally announces any kind of event, any kind of live stream, whenever they want to announce the PS5, it might not even be a live stream, but in case it is, please subscribe, hit the bell, because I would like to enjoy it with all of you, and we can all share the moment when they announce the next Ratchet and Clank game. Because if it is going to be a launch title, it's going to be announced with the PS5, right? So subscribe, leave a like too, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about all this? Again, I have another video coming out in like a day. I still have to finish it. This one's not actually done yet. It's very close. But I talk about why I think the game might be a pretty big deal. That might be the last video of Talking Head until they announce the game, potentially, depending on when they want to do it. We have no idea. We've been saying February, but those are all just been rumors. They have actually, there's been no official leak or rumor that it is happening in February at all. Everyone's just basing it on the PS4, how that went, but this is very different, so who knows. But yeah, launch title, Ratchet and Clank. Love to see it. Stay tuned for the next video. I talk about why it's going to be a big deal. I have a lot of things to say in there. It's going to be a shorter video, maybe like as long, if not shorter than this. Thank you all so much for your time. I love you all. I'll see you soon. Peace.